This is a sermon about letting go, and it begins with a simple question. What is the goal of a human life? What is the goal of your life? And what stands in your way? Now, I speak to you with a special urgency this morning. In 14 weeks, I will step down as the Dean of Grace Cathedral. And I have so much to say to you during our limited time together. So this sermon has 3 chapters. The first is called Why Pleasure is Not Enough. The second is called The False Self. And the third chapter is called Letting Go. So the first chapter about pleasure. Now, some of you, I know from talking to you, find the Apostle Paul frustrating for various different reasons. But he does understand the human condition and how we might be united to God. And our reading this morning from his letter to the Romans begins with the Greek word parakalo. And that word means to urge, to exhort, to comfort. He really is begging his readers, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Today, we will talk about what this means. The writer Ken Wilber says that religion has always served 2 different but very important functions. On the one hand, it creates meaning for a separate self so that the individual can make sense of and endure suffering. In this, it consoles and fortifies, promotes and defends the self. So this kind of religion focuses on protecting boundaries. It believes myths and defends dogmas. The other function of religion does not console the self, but destroys it. This kind of religion dissolves our sense of being a separate self, and it immerses us in and unites us with God. Now, Jesus got into trouble with adherence to the first kind of religion, but he does this because of his great hope that we too might become children of God. In his 1985 book, Entertaining Ourselves to Death, the writer Neil Postman talks about George Orwell's novel 1984 and its prophecy that a totalitarian state that at every point bullies, dehumanizes, and belittles human beings, it would arise on the face of the earth. Now, Postman contrasts this with Aldous Huxley's novel, A Brave New World. And he writes, and this is a long quote, but stick with me, quote, Orwell warns that we will be overcome by an externally opposed oppression. But in Huxley's version, no big brother is required to deprive people of their autonomy, maturity, and history. As he saw it, people will come to love their oppression, to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. And Postman goes on, quote, what Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban books because no one would want to read them anyway. Orwell feared that those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture. In his book, 1984, Huxley wrote that people are controlled by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. In short, Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us. As human beings, we find ourselves in a world of paradoxes. We habitually believe that we will be satisfied and free when we have more security, power, and wealth. But we are just as easily undone by our pleasures. And Paul asks his reader to become perfect. But the word he uses is teleon. It's related to our word telos, and it derives from the word that Greeks used as the goal line, as like the finish line for chariot races. And so it also means a kind of completeness, a kind of wholeness. And becoming complete or whole is difficult for human beings because paradoxes lie at the heart of our existence. The Benedictine monk Cyprian Smith writes that a paradox is when two apparently opposed realities are held in tension rather than resolving one in favor of the other. Jesus longs to awaken in us the truth that we are both human and divine. And at first, these seem like utterly contradictory states, but with his help, we begin to experience our life at a different level. We enter the mystery of the unity with God. But first, something in us needs to die. Chapter 2, the false self. Virginia Evans wrote an epistolary novel called The Correspondent. Did any of you read this? All right, okay, I see you all. So you're going to get this. So this novel is about a retired lawyer who basically dedicated her whole career to clerking for a judge. So the judge and her worked very closely together. And her name was Sybil. And now Sybil secretly holds herself responsible for her son Gilbert's death at the age of 8. So now an old woman, she has 2 grown children, Bruce and Fiona, and an ex-husband who is himself dying of cancer. And he writes one last letter to her before he dies. And this is what he writes. And again, it's a very long quote. Gilbert's dying. It became the whole thing. You, Bruce and Fiona, our friends, my work, the house, our life, all of that was sitting on the sidelines, but I was in the ring, wrestling, bloody, half dead with Gil's death. Parenting the other 2, trying to help them with their own grief was like acting. I could say what needed to be said, but I was only thinking of myself in the ring with Gil's death. I have asked Bruce and Fiona about that time. I was surprised to learn that they're both in therapy. I think neither of us was able to shepherd them in those first crucial months, submerged completely in the swamp water of despair. We were needing the same thing, you and I, a temple in which to tuck away and disappear from the earth to mourn. But we had the children, so we could not. Could we have held on to each other? I've wondered. We did the best we could, and it was not enough. The 4 of us came away injured, but is there any other way for a person to come through? Oh, Gilbert, I do hope there is a heaven, as I have always believed. I hope I will see and know him there. How cruel life is only this long. Now that I see clearly, I'd like more time. It's not to be. I'm ready to go. Dear Sybil, I do love you. The children are fortunate. It is not you they are losing. You've been a wonderful mother to them. The first thing I'll do is kiss Gilbert for you. I'd like to hear from you. Not a demand, merely a hope. But either way, until we meet again, and I believe we will, we must. With love, Dan. So Sybil, after a lifetime of letter writing, of expressing herself chiefly in this form, she knew what was the right thing to do. So what makes it impossible for her to write back to her ex-husband? The shortest answer I can possibly think to offer has to do with the Trappist monk Thomas Merton calls the false self. He writes, quote, "This self that exists only in my egocentric desires can become for us the fundamental reality of life to which everything else in the universe is ordered. Thus, I use up my life in the desire for pleasures, in the thirst for experiences, for power, honor, knowledge, and love, to clothe this false self," end quote. And I think I'm a more gentle soul than Thomas Merton, so I would describe the false self in a different way. The false self includes our moral attainments, our reputation, title, achievements, but I also know that it is so often disappointed, aggrieved, and yes, ceaselessly offended. Our true self is not earned, it's not attained, it is not a role or a persona. It is what we have always been and what we will always be. Merton explains, quote, "The secret of my identity is hidden in the love and mercy of God." And Cyprian Sith says, quote, "I am destined for union with God. I was created for that and will find fulfillment only in that. But I have to die somehow to the life I am living so as to find new life in God." Chapter 3, letting go. Running away from his brother, darkness falls too early, and Jacob lies down with a stone for his pillow, and he dreams of angels rising and descending from heaven. And in the morning, he looks around and he says, "The Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." Now, it's easy to experience that here, but one might experience this in every place. But something in us has to die first. We have to take our clutching hand off the steering wheel and let our life be directed by God. Mary says to the angel Gabriel, "Let it be unto me according to thy word." And in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prays to God, saying, "Not my will, but thine be done." And in our own ways, we can do the same. We can die to our anger, to our desire to be right, to our resistance of forgiveness and love. We can live more deeply in our true self, in unity with each other and with God. Mary Oliver writes about the remarkable transformation, the metamorphosis that comes with living out of our true self. This is her poem, "When Death Comes." When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut. When death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door, full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name, a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does towards silence. And each body, a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. What is the goal of a human life? It is woven in paradox. As I've begun packing up my books, you've been so much on my mind. For the last 11 years, we have walked along together on this journey toward our Creator. And together, we have not been conformed to the world, merely defending our own egos, but seeking true transformation and a life of forgiveness. Through the Spirit, we are learning to be free, both from our pain and from our pleasures. And above all, we have been revealing our true selves to each other. We have been married to amazement, taking the world into our arms.